The evidence is clear. Climate change poses an existential threat to our lives, to our economy, and the threat is here. It's not going to get any better. The question, can it get worse? We can stop it from getting worse.
That's right.
And when I talk about building back better, and Chuck is fighting for my program, our program on the Hill, when I talk about building back better, I mean you can't build to what it was before this last storm. You got to build better so if the storm occurred again, there would be no damage. There would be. But that's not going to stop us, though, because if we just do that, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse, because the storms are going to get worse and worse and worse. And so, folks, we got to listen to the scientists and the economists and the national security experts. They all tell us this is code red. The nation and the world are in peril. That's not hyperbole.
Yeah.
That is a fact. They've been warning us the extreme weather would get more extreme over the decade, and we're living in real time now. Or we can look around the wreckage and the ruins and the heartbreak from so many communities to feel it. Just don't understand. You can feel it. You can taste it. You can see it. Precious lives lost in Louisiana, New Jersey, New York. Families living in shelters, subway stations flooded, decaying infrastructure pushed beyond the limits. Lives and livelihoods interrupted once again. We're working closely with the governors and mayors and members of Congress and community leaders. On Sunday, I immediately approved the disaster declaration of Governor Hochul to rush federal assistance to where it was needed here. FEMA is working intensively with state and local officials, assessing the damage and mobilizing resources. One of the things I want to thank Chuck for as leader of the Senate. He has helped mobilize state, local, and federal. When they're all working together, that's when things happen positively. The Health and Human Services Secretary is working with the state to ensure folks on Medicare and Medicaid get the emergency care they needed. They're going to make sure it's equitable so that the hardest hit, including lower income folks, communities of color, and the elderly, and the most vulnerable, get help and get it first. They are the ones in the greatest need. And there's much to be done, and we're working around the clock in all these critical needs and areas. Look, I say to anyone who can hear this or if this is broadcast, if you need help, please go to disasterassistance.gov or call 1-800-621-FEMA, 1-800-621-3362. We can get you help now. We can get you help now. And I know these disasters aren't going to stop. They're only going to come with more frequency and ferocity. And as I said, I'm working in Congress to pass two important pieces of legislation that this man here is honchoing through the Congress for me. The bipartisan plan to modernize our physical infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our power transmissions, our distribution lines. How many bridges I just went through in New Jersey that have been overflown by the river. The river's gone higher than the bridges, having done damage to them. My Build Back Better plan with key investments in to fight climate change, cutting emissions, and make things more resilient. Each dollar we invest, every dollar we raise, a city block by 2 feet, flood-proof power stations, sanitations, reduction in the buildup of kindling in our forest, installing electrical lines underground rather than overhead, saves us $6 for every single dollar we spend to do those things. Because the next time disaster strikes, the flood is contained, the fire doesn't spread as wisely, and power stays on. Not to mention those investments save lives, homes, and create good-paying union jobs.
Yay.
I hosted
We like union jobs.
56 heads of state in Washington. And I pointed out, we're talking about climate change. And I said, I think of one word when I think of climate change: jobs. Good paying jobs. Each of these things requires a good paying job, not $7 or $12 or $15, but $45, $50 an hour plus health care. That's what is needed. And so, folks, it will also, and Wall Street, not too far from here, acknowledges if we spend the money on these things, we're going to grow the economy,
Yes.
increase employment. You know, the fire in Oregon sent smoke all the way to the Atlantic. A storm in the Gulf, as you've now figured out, can reverberate 10 states away. Supply chains and crop production get interrupted, driving up costs, devastating industries all over America. This is everybody's crisis.
Yes.
Everybody's crisis. And let me just say again, the fact is that the damage done on the West Coast, which I'll be heading to, they've already burned 5 million acres to the ground. That's bigger than the state of New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken. 5 million acres. And you see it by the smoke that ends up coming over the East Coast. Folks, we're all in this. It's about time we stop the regional fights and understand. Helping somebody make sure there's no fewer fires in the West warrants helping people in this alley make sure they're not flooded. And by the way, it's not just the flooding. I'll end with this. Not just the flooding. Flooding ends up overrunning sanitation systems. And it causes disease. And people get sick. And it's serious, serious business. So we got a lot of work to do. Again, it's good paying jobs. We can put the economy back on a path to real growth. But in the meantime, we're going to save a whole hell of a lot of people's lives, and we're going to save a whole hell of a lot of money. God bless you all. Let's get this done.
President, look at that nice kid with the American flag. Say hello.
How are you, pal?
What's your name? You can't hear us.
How old are you? Oh, you're getting old.
Is that nice?
And by the way, the neat thing about America, every time we end up with a problem, going into a serious circumstance, we come out better than we went in. That's because we're so diverse. That's America. Be proud of it. Thank you. And don't jump. All right.
Great job.
Thanks. Thanks. I didn't get to mention all the names.